but I think we would try to open up just for a couple of questions.
A couple of questions? That means each question has to be very important if there are only two.
Do we have anyone with a microphone in the audience?
I mean, people come prepared with microphones?
Yes, we've got two people. I'm waving my hand right here. There's someone across from me. Line up behind us, and we will pass it on for questions.
Can anyone tell me how much time we have left?
Just under 25 minutes.
Okay.
That's an eternity. These people are getting itchy already.
All right. So I'll leave it to you to let the questions be asked.
Yes, Stan. First of all, thanks for coming out here to the east side of the country. We're really glad that you're here. You've obviously written comics, you've done art, you've been on TV and movies. Is there anything in life that you've wanted to do that you felt that you have not done yet?
Well, I haven't been elected president of the United States. I think my parents would have been very disappointed. No, I enjoy what I do, and every day seems to bring a new surprise. And I just take things as they come. Everything I do is a lot of fun for me.
Next.
Except sitting here getting interviewed.
You can make a commitment.
How you doing, Stan? Just want to say thank you for coming. You know, we're all great fans of what you've done. You've created so many memorable characters. It's just fantastic, you know.
I couldn't agree more.
And, you know, we're now in a new age where comic books can also be brought to film. And we've seen you in a lot of the films as a cameo, and you've entrusted these film companies to do the right thing with your work and not do something wrong. And I was just wondering how you felt. I mean, have they treated your work with respect and done the right thing? Like, you get to meet all these great characters, like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, and you know, you get to see Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, you know, all of these great actors. You know, how do you feel about that, and how would you feel if other artists in your past that worked with you would feel about the same thing?
Oh, I think they all pretty much feel the way I do. It's been wonderful. You know, when you really think about it, I wrote these little comic books years ago, and suddenly they make these magnificent movies of them, and it's the movie makers that are doing all the work, not me, but I end up getting a lot of the credit. So what a wonderful situation. They make great movies, and everybody says, good job, Stan. It's fine. But I'm very proud of it. That Iron Man, that Robert Downey Jr., I tell you, he's the greatest. I had lunch with him. I'm a big name dropper, by the way. I had lunch with him before the show started, before the movie started. We talked about how the role ought to be played and this and that. He told me a lot more than I told him. He's a great guy. And, oh, wait till you see Thor. Wait till you see my cameo in Thor. I haven't done the cameo in Captain America yet, because I think they're going to film it in England, and I don't have time to go to England, but I hope they do some scene back here in the States so that I can be in that. And then, of course, there's the Avengers and the Doctor Strange. Oh, I had lunch with the guy who was going to do, believe it or not, Ant-Man. And if that isn't going to knock everybody off their socks, I don't know. Ant-Man, the movie.
Is there any particular movie that you would think is the most authentic, or any particular that you think is the most authentic to the comic, or any particular one you thought was the furthest off?
Well, I thought that the three best were Spider-Man and the X-Men and Iron Man. The others were good, but the three I mentioned were spectacularly good. It'll be interesting to see how Spider-Man works out in the new version that they're going to have. Everybody is saying, no, he's the wrong guy to play Spider-Man and this and that, but everybody said the same thing about, it was Tobey Maguire. and he turned out to be good. So all I ask is that you withhold judgment until you see the movie.
Hey Stan, it's great talking to you. I'm an entrepreneur, and one of the things that I think is that you're probably the greatest pitchman of the century, a terrific salesman, marketer, and you mentioned advertising and marketing. And I wanted to know, what are your tips in advertising, marketing, and selling a product for a businessman, entrepreneur like myself?
I missed the last part.
What are your tips for marketing to an entrepreneur?
My tips?
Yes.
Well, that's a tough one to answer. I think the first thing you need is a lot of enthusiasm. The next thing you need, you really can't fool the public. You've got to tell the truth, but what you do is you try to embellish the truth and make it as interesting as possible. And it doesn't hurt to have a lot of catchphrases that catch on. And one of the best we had at Marvel, I think, was "Welcome to the Marvel Age of Comics," you know? And the use we used of the word Marvel, we ingrained that word into the readers. Now, it wouldn't have worked if the Marvel books weren't good, but we kept playing it up, and the fans became Marvel conscious. See, it was tough to take DC and ingrain that in people, because those two initials are so nothingy. I think to answer your question, if you want to be a successful pitchman, you have to have a good product to pitch, and you have to play up the good things about that good product, and you have to make it seem exciting, and you have to make it seem like you really mean what you say. In my case, I'll admit I'm a huckster, and I'll admit I exaggerate a lot, but I do believe what I'm saying, so that makes it a little easier for me.
Stan, you just mentioned X-Men and the theme of prejudice in that strip. I happen to own Amazing Fantasy number 14, so I missed the big one by one issue. But number 14 is listed as having the X-Men prototype story. But when I read it, it's not just a prototype, it is literally the origin of the X-Men. It's about a young boy who feels different because he has a mutant power, he's beat up at school. He's contacted telepathically by this professor who tells him he's bringing him so that mutants can get together and protect mankind. My question is, when you wrote that standalone story, was there any inkling in your mind that that could be the foundation for an ongoing series?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Didn't expect such a short answer. I just realized something. Up there on the screen. See that, or am I the only one who can see it? Amazing place.
Over here.
Thanks, Stan, for being here. I'm a long-time reader, first-time questioner.
Excuse me a minute, you know, when I hear these things, I keep looking that way, because it's, are you all over there? It would be terrible if you were talking there and I'm looking here.
This one's over here.
Over there? Okay, fine. Go, I'm sorry.
The movies are great, and the comics, of course, are fantastic. But it wasn't such a long time ago that Marvel actually was in a state of disarray, almost bankruptcy. And if I understand the story correctly, they put Spider-Man on the table and said, what's Spider-Man worth? Were you part of any of those conversations, or did you have any sort of participation in the revamping of the Marvel industry?
They put Spider-Man on the table and said, what is Spider-Man worth? Is that? I don't know.
He's asking, when Marvel had the financial trouble a few years back, and they were trying to figure out their problems, how to fix their problems, did they include you in any conversations?
No. I was never involved in the business area of Marvel. One of the big problems that Marvel had, unfortunately, the previous management didn't want to do movies or television shows. For some reason I couldn't understand, there was once, you remember Bo Derek, the actress who played in 10? She was the most beautiful one available in those days. I had her all set to do a movie called The Black Widow. She was going to star in it. And we had a television series. We had a network all set to produce it. And I went in and I told the management of the company, hey, we're going to do a TV series, The Black Widow, starring Bo Derek. And they said, no, we don't want to do it. And I said, why? They said, well, if the series doesn't do well, it'll be bad for the character. The public won't like the character. And the same thing happened with Daredevil. I could have done that. They said, no, we don't want to do it. If it bombs, then nobody will read Daredevil. And I couldn't understand that kind of logic. I said that we'd never do anything, because what if it didn't work?